Okay, so I think the day has finally come. We can start getting these floors patched in. Now the last 2 to 3 days we've spent laying on our backs working on inner and outer rocker panels as well as floor supports. So I think the bulk of the sheet metal work underneath the car is pretty well wrapped up for now. So this will be a decent change of pace up on our 2 feet working on stuff inside the car. So I think the game plan for the next couple, 3 days is we're just gonna start at the front of the car and work our way towards the back, getting floor pans patched in, and then we'll move across to the trunk and start addressing the trunk floor rot as well as the deck lid. Now I've got my floor pans here. We'll get these things out. I went ahead and pulled them out the other day just to kind of test fit them. Now I ordered the absolute cheapest floor pans a person could buy off eBay, and they are so far oversized and not even stamped right that it's not even funny. So we're gonna get creative with the grinder, get these guys nestled in here, and we'll get them to fit one way or the other. So stay tuned, and we'll bring the camera along and kind of show you guys what progress we make.
These things don't fit even near close. I went back and checked my order just to make sure I didn't order the wrong thing, and it looks like, I don't know, this is just probably what happens when you order the cheapest thing off of eBay. So, I don't know, I'm going to pull a couple measurements on these and see kind of where we're off. This contour here looks pretty close to match this here. I'm like 2 1/8, 2 1/4 or so off that detent. So that's close-ish. Got these 3 ribs right here. They are from the front of this, what's this lip here, looking at like, I don't know, 8 1/2, 12, maybe 15 1/2. Here we're 11, 14 1/2, and 17 1/2. So, I mean, they're close. I don't know if I can make these things work or not. I mean, I can probably make them work, but I don't want to hack them in there. So, I don't know. I may fiddle with this a little bit and just see what I can come up with. The back ones here are, believe it or not, they're way larger, but I think they're going to be easier to make work because I don't have quite the contour to deal with here. Now I say that, and it may be twice as hard to get the backs finessed in, but I might try to make these work. I'm going to maybe set the camera up, see what I can come up with.
Some template. Turns out like 70-year-old spot welds are kind of hard to rotate. That's okay though, we'll figure it out. Got it chopped out. The rest of this support looked pretty okay. I got into it a little bit here with the grinder, but as a matter of fact, I was kind of wondering, if you refer back to earlier in the video, there was a hole there in the floor with nothing in it. I didn't know what that was. I guess it makes sense that should have been a body mount bolt and bushing there, but it was missing, and this was just kind of hanging loose here. I mean, there's a remnant of a bushing here, but so I'm gonna put new bushings all around, so it's not that big of a deal. It's kind of odd that was missing, but nonetheless, it's out. So I think I can make that pan work. I mean, it may not, the ribs in it may not line up just, you know, specifically where they were from the factory, but the whole purpose of them being there is just to add a little rigidity to that pan. That way it's just not flopping all over the place when you put your foot on it. So shouldn't be any big deal. I went ahead and cut a little bit farther up on the tunnel than the pan allows for, but since the pan is way oversized, I'm hoping that I can kind of do like these are preformed, and I don't have a sheet metal brake, but I probably can come up with something 2x4s and maybe a couple straight edges on the edge of the work table, and maybe get some
creases put back in these things, kind of where the transmission tunnel is going to take place. And I guess worst case scenario, if I have to, I can get this kind of rough fit in. This is the one for the other side, but I can, you know, zip this down the middle to size everything back up, take 2 inches of it or whatever out if I'm concerned with kind of getting the corners matched up. This corner, there's this fold here needs to kind of halfway be somewhere in this vicinity for this little hump here and the seat brackets. So that's going to be a little bit of a head scratching to get that figured out, but I think I'll be able to figure something out. And I guess another plus side of them being way larger than they're supposed to be is I'll have a little bit extra sheet metal to maybe patch some of these sections in that, you know, really this car needs a whole new floor. But all that being said, I'm going to move on. Probably not going to mess with, no, you know what? I think I am. I guess I'll go ahead and sweep all this up, get under here, get the, there's a pulley bracket on the bottom of the little kick panel here for where the emergency brake hinges off. So the cable's here, and it does some kind of monkey motion, rigmarole stuff, and there's a pulley over here. You can see it moving. So try to get all that cut loose. That way I can go ahead and, you know, go up maybe, I don't know, 4 inches or so. Maybe, this is kind of bad. Maybe if I can go up to, you know, somewhere in here, all the way across, and I'll have to piece that in. Obviously, it won't be one piece of the floor plan rolling up, but maybe see if I can patch that in. And I may have to get some more metal, but I think, as a matter of fact, this pan here, short of it being a little bit crusty here, it's like this whole corner is super solid. So I may end up having a full extra floor pan that's going to go here. So if that's the case, then I've got a lot of extra sheet metal to use here, here, and same with over, there's a little spot over there that needs to be hit. But that'll be nice because I can maybe try to halfway utilize some of the stamp marks that are pressed into it. So I'm not just putting just a floppy piece of sheet metal here, which probably won't be too bad because I've got the 2 floor supports here, and it's not really where you rest your feet. I mean, this is just kind of the seat comes over here, and you just, you're going to roll up in here. So I don't know. We'll start with that. Kind of a tedious step-by-step process, but I'm going to get this. If I can get this side done this evening, or at least mocked in, then I'll feel pretty satisfied. So that's where I'm going to start. Stay tuned. Alrighty, so that wasn't as horrible as I anticipated. I fought a little bit with the park and brake cable bracket. Those bolts are just too crusty to come out. And there's a little bracket for the transmission kickdown. I'll clean those up and have those ready to fasten on the new patch that I'm gonna put in here. This is like a couple 3-layer thick pinch weld that goes across that probably serves as some rigidity going through here that ended up so far gone. So what I'm probably gonna do is I'll form that into the new patch here going across, and then if the panel here's got one on the face of it, if I don't have to cut the patch too bad, I'll be able to use that, and then I'll have at least 2 layers here that I can kind of plug weld in the bottom of that. We'll see how well that works out, but I'm gonna start with, since this is gonna be the easiest, straightforward, I'm gonna start with making this patch here, and then we'll move on to fiddling around with this goofy mess here. And that'll be, if I can get that knocked out, that'll be an accomplishment. Okay, so here's a makeshift sheet metal brake. Try to heat it up a little bit so I can kind of get it bent along this line here. So if the rest of the floors go as easy as this, we'll be in good shape. That ain't gonna happen, but got this shaped up pretty good. I'm gonna have to go through and weld it in. I'll pop it out. I'm gonna wire wheel behind it, throw a little primer and paint back there. Just it's gonna be kind of hard to get to once this panel's on. Not exactly perfect down here, but I think it'd be close enough. Not as worried about having these stiffener seam presses, whatever you want to call them, in the pan. This is actually just like a piece of sheet metal from the metal supply. I think it's 16 or 18 gauge. So it's considerably thicker than just the floor pan sheet metal. So should be good to go with that. Plus there's this brace that's going to tie in right here. And if it flexes at all, that thing kind of comes down right here if I need to. I could probably just throw a little kicker off of that one brace to support it, maybe over here in the middle or something, but I don't think we're gonna have to do that. So gonna wire wheel behind that, throw a little paint on it, and then probably go ahead and weld that in tonight. Alrighty, so welcome back to my mess. I think the last video we finished off working on this little kick panel patch. Today we're just gonna jump right in and start working on these import special floor pans. I had to get the existing pan out in a couple different chunks due to all the spot welds and whatnot from the floor support. So gonna try to halfway use this as somewhat of a pattern. We'll go ahead and start chewing away at that and then see if we can't get this thing test fit in. And then kind of depending on how it goes, may or may not take you guys along for step by step of this other side. We'll see. Shouldn't be too bad. Just gonna dive off in and see what we can get accomplished. Got this halfway mocked in pretty close. Floor support that goes across here is sitting a little bit high. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and locate the two body mount holes here. And I don't know why. There should be one somewhere in this vicinity because these pans, I guess, are not correct. I think I'm gonna try to stamp a recess in this pan locating around here. But I'll get that support lower down, that way I can get this thing kind of tucked in a little bit tighter on the corners, and then we can kind of tack it in and then see what this is going to entail here. So I have to go up underneath the car and probably mark it from underneath so I can locate the hole, pop those two holes in, see if I can get this thing tacked in, and going pretty good. All right, so got this pan tacked in quick. I'll have to make another pass all the way around, finish out these welds. Kind of got a little wild up here in this corner, and this ended up working pretty good, so not too bad. I don't have any metal to do this section yet. I should have an extra pan that I'm not gonna use right here. So probably gonna hang tight to do this one until I kind of figure out what I've got left over. So I'll make another pass on this pan here with the welder, let it cool off. So then I'm gonna hop across to this other side, start tearing into it, and then probably move on to the back. So went ahead and got this side snipped in real quick, wasn't too bad. Bunch of the same as what we did over here. Had a little kick panel patch to contend with in this little corner. Not quite as bad as on the driver's side, but kind of did the same thing, just used another piece of random miscellaneous plate. Kind of had to do a little forming here at the bottom of it, but wasn't too bad. And then same thing over here, a little bit of rot up into the hump. Just patch those in along instead of trying to get all this in one piece. And then I had a piece large enough to go ahead and pop this little patch in here. Still have to jump across to the other side and knock that big one in, but we'll do that once I determine kind of what I've got left over for sheet metal. So I think I'm gonna move on to the back here. This is my patch here. I know it's like way oversized. Probably do a bunch of little kind of oddball measuring like I did on the fronts. I don't necessarily think any of these ribs are gonna try to line up with kind of the existing ones, which they didn't in the front. They were a couple inches off in any which direction. And I'm actually, as a matter of fact, just realizing I forgot to punch the body mount holes in that front, in the passenger pan over there. I got them put in over here. I just went in from underneath and marked them. I can do it over here. It's not that big of a deal. The only thing I did on the driver's side was took a couple sockets and kind of tried to, and pressed in some detents to, I guess, add a little rigidity there and cup the washers. So I won't be able to do that over here. But I should be able to kind of crawl up underneath and mark it and then drill it. That kind of stinks, but oh well, it's not the end of the world. So I'll drill those in from underneath, I guess. I'm not worried about it right this second. I still have to go do a little more touch up around both pans and then get the grinder to them, and then I'll go ahead and seam seal all that. So probably go ahead and do that once I get all of my patches in. We'll spend one day just vacuuming this thing out and touching up a little bit, and then go around seam seal everything. That way I'm not halfway laying in it and sticking it everywhere. So we'll jump across to this one, and yeah, I guess that's where we're at. Got that snipped out, wasn't too bad. Got a couple little spots here, and then this little corner to deal with that are kind of soft and spongy. So if I can incorporate that into the big pan, then I'll do that. Not sure how easy it's going to be to shape it in this little roll here, being that this is just not even formed, you know, even remotely close. Worst case, I'll just kind of do a similar thing, and I'll just add a couple little small patches along, you know, seamed in with the big patch here. So shouldn't be too bad. I'll start pulling some measurements on that pan there, and then kind of see how it's going to fit. This has got a little bit of a roll to it. Kind of goes down and sweeps up, which that pan does not. So may have to get a little creative there, but it'll work out one way or the next. I'm not even just using to locate all my spot welds, or instead of locating all the spot welds, just because all this is so, you know, rusted up. I'm not even taking the time to do it. I'm just using a cheapo wood chisel. Take it over to the grinder, sharpen it up, and pound away at a couple of them, and re-hit it with the grinder, put another edge on it. I know they've got tools for that, but this seems like it works just fine, especially being that everything's already kind of soft to begin with. So all that being said, I will start chewing away at the patch there, and this may get tricky. This section here, so the floor itself dips down in this spot for the seat. So this is where the seat bolts go, and there's a flat pad that goes across here. That's kind of got a little bit of a bend in it to somehow incorporate, you know, a little bit of this section. I don't even know if any of that's remotely usable, but I think probably what I'll end up doing is just really cutting a square out of that and then seaming that in, and just kind of letting the roll of the pan be it, because it's flat over here, but there is a dip in it over there. So I don't know, we'll see. Shouldn't be too bad. All right, so I got this kind of nibbled down a little bit better. Way it's a little bit more manageable size-wise. I think I'm gonna get lucky and be able to incorporate this little corner patch that needs to be done along with this patch here. I'm not even gonna mess with this one because I'm not gonna be able to form this bend, so I'll just have to snip in another little square similar to what I got over here. Probably if I'd have known that or realized that before I started, I probably would have just ran a whole patch along here similar to what's going on this side over here. I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, I'm gonna worry about getting this guy in. So what I'm thinking is I've got to chop a big section of this off. So I'm gonna lay this thing in here is pretty close to where I think I want it to lay, and then go across here with a Sharpie and make a couple Sharpie lines, you know, starting here and then transferring over to the existing, or the new floor pan, I should say. And then I will then put this framing square going across from my Sharpie line, get a measurement going here, 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 and then I will transfer that Sharpie line mark over here, and that way I'll be able to kind of better judge what this cut is going to look like. Same with this top section here. So I'll get to picking away at that and see what I can get done. All right, so this is kind of what I was talking about with my lines. So I went through and hashed a couple lines across here. Did the same thing over here on the panel, which matched up with what I've got marked over here. And then just pulled a couple measurements over to where my floor seam is going to be. And then just transferred those lines over here. So this is where that new section is going to start. So I think I may have got a little overzealous, and I'm gonna have to do a little bit of corner here, but that's all right. I'll get this cut out quick and then kind of started doing the top, but I think I'm just gonna leave the top hole for now until I get this cut in. We'll see how this nestles in, and then I'll figure out what we're gonna do up top. All right, so that's kind of what we're going for. We're getting close. Gotta do a little shaping over here to get that bend I was talking about in it. And then I did mess up here in this little corner, so I'm gonna patch that in, but no big deal there. So I think what I'm gonna do is throw a couple tacks in this thing on this back side, because this is all pretty flat. And then I will kind of start forming this thing in. And I've still got to cut this out up here, but I think I'm going to throw a couple tacks in to help hold it in place, get all this marked, then pop it back out, cut this, and figure out what I'm going to do over here. And then that'll get me close where I can kind of get everything cleaned up to test fit. All right, so came out this morning and just got right to it. Finished up the other day with these two front pans done, and then last night I kind of left off getting this one mocked in and hit it with a little bit of paint. So went ahead and got it welded in this morning. I'll take you around to the other side and kind of show you a little bit closer up what that turned out like. So got it all tied in. Wasn't too bad. I think if I had to do it again, I would approach it a little bit different, but fortunately this side looks pretty good, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Not even mess with that over there. I'll wire wheel it just to be sure there's no pinholes or anything, but it does feel pretty solid. So this side, like I said, this side's knocked out. Went ahead and got this little corner patch tied in here, so should be good to go all the way across. I'm gonna jump across to this guy over here. Had some scraps big enough off of this chunk here to get that side patched in. So we'll get right to that, and then I think that should pretty well conclude everything in here as far as inside the cab is concerned. And then we can jump across, get in the trunk there, and start kind of poking away at the trunk floor, and a little bit of rod around the spare tire holder, and bottom of the deck lid's got a little work that needs to be done to it. I think there's a couple little spots here and there, but get all that junk ripped out of there later on, and then we'll just kind of tear into it. I would say that turned out pretty decent for someone that has no business doing any body work. So I'm pretty good with that. Turned out better than I kind of anticipated it. So I'll go around, make another pass or two around it, get it all finished welding it up. And then I still have to do a couple passes on this patch here. And then I think I need to do a couple little touch up on that one. Other than that, that should pretty well complete the patchwork inside the cab here. So I'll finish that up, and then we can go ahead and jump on the trunk floor. Okay, so got all the rust cut away.
little bit more in depth than I was hoping for, but still not horrible, so should be able to get all that patched in nonetheless. Got in here and noticed that this side of this trunk was a little bit crunchy, so went ahead and cut it out. I think this little pinch weld here is going to be savable, so I'm hoping I can just patch down to it. Same thing with this floor here. We'll just cut these little patches to size, tack them in, and that should wrap up this little corner here. Now, I've got 2 patches here in this spare tire tub, one here and one here. There's going to be square patches. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. We'll just tack those in and call it a day there. Now, this is going to be a head scratcher over here. In essence of time and budget, primarily budget, we're going to try to cobble around and make this patch ourselves. So I'm going to attempt to form these ribs in a new piece of sheet metal. I've got an idea. It involves sheet of plywood, a couple 2x4s, maybe some conduit, and maybe a truck and a driveway. Who knows? Whatever it's going to take to drive over it, to stamp it back in. Obviously, you know, I don't have a press or anything to that nature that's going to stamp those in. So we'll get creative and just see what happens. I'm not necessarily concerned with it being just a perfect match to factory, but if I can get creative and get this thing close, I'll be pretty satisfied with that. Well, I don't know. It's close. Had to get a little bit creative with some heat. Finally get it to finesse into shape, but pretty stinking close. I'm gonna hack it down into a workable size and really see how rigid it is. And if it seems like it's tolerable, then we'll just slam it in and call it a day at that. But I don't know. I think it'll work. All right, so yesterday kind of turned into a mess. At some point the cameras died, then ran out of welding wire, had a couple appointments in the afternoon, so that pretty well halted all the progress yesterday. But this morning we're just gonna kind of jump back off in and start where we left off. So I was working on getting this ribbed patch welded in, and that's where we ran out of wire. So I went ahead and got this corner panel test fit in. It's pretty close. May need to do a little touch up on it. So we'll work on getting these guys burned in right here, and then I've still got to do these other couple patches in the spare tire tub, as well as the 2 little patches on the other side. So if we can get those knocked out, that'll pretty well wrap up the trunk floor here, and then we can kind of jump on the deck lid and start messing with that catastrophe. So gonna go ahead and start on this, and then just kind of see where we end up today. All right, so trunk floor is pretty well wrapped up for the time being. Got all of our patches in. Everything seemed like it worked out decent. Went ahead and hit these guys, a little bit of paint and filler just in preps of cargo space interior. Not exactly sure what we're gonna do there yet. I know some guys go in and put upholstered panels like here, here, and here that match the interior of the car. Certainly looks nice, but just in terms of budget, we're probably gonna skimp out on that, hence the reason for the filler in these locations. So we can knock these guys down with DA sander, paint it to match the exterior of the car, and it'll look just fine. Now these 2 patches were a little bit trickier. This is the one obviously we had to form out in the driveway with all that monkey motion nonsense. But not a quite perfect match to factory, but it works. I think it serves its purpose. I've cobbled around in here. Pan doesn't flex at all, so I think we're gonna call it a day at that. So floor pans inside are knocked out, trunk floor is knocked out. I'm totally ignoring the deck lid for now because I don't want to look at it. So that's going to conclude this video. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe for future updates. There'll be more videos of this car coming soon.